Gators. No. Welcome to another edition of the Florida State Semi-cast. This is my Florida Gator reaction and more. Going to be talking about the game, uh, Florida fans, the SEC, get into a little bit of all that stuff. Start with the game. Florida State won 31-13. And the game really was never that close. It really wasn't. That's not just me being some biased FSU fan. Like, honestly, let's take a look. FSU had 387 total yards. Florida had 207. But let's be real. Florida got their last drive going with, what, a minute to go? And probably picked up around, what, 50 yards? So, for being honest, Florida really had probably like 150 something total yards before garbage time to FSU's 387. So FSU more than doubled Florida's yardage total, if we're being honest with each other here. If you look at yards per play, FSU was around 6, Florida was around 3. So once again, about double Florida's output. Dalvin Cook was Dalvin Cook, man. And this year, Gators couldn't say, well, hey, he got most of his yards in the fourth quarter. Our defense was tired. No, no. Cook got most of his 150 something yards, whatever it was, in the first three quarters. So sorry. Francois might have played his worst game, to be honest. And I'm not trying to totally discredit Florida's secondary or their defense in general, but he played not very well at all. I mean, I usually can bitch at the fucking offensive line about pass protection. Like, man, fuck these guys. They can't pass protect my dick. I couldn't do that Saturday. In general, the pass protection was good. I just rewatched the game last night. I forgot the YouTube channel, but the game is condensed into just 30 minutes where, all the commercials are taken out. It's just snap to snap. The plays are stringed together. So it's a really quick way to rewatch a game. And yeah, many times he had a clean pocket and he either made the wrong decision or just made a poor throw. Like he did not play well. I think he finished with 140 something passing yards and an interception, and of course that fumble on that big hit that he took on that scramble. And honestly, I still I don't know if I'm convinced if that was a fumble. They did the replay, and I remember commenting at the time like you can't. The ball was looking blurry as shit when they were showing the replay. Like you couldn't tell if it was indeed moving before his arm hit the ground and then it popped out. And I've seen people on Twitter post replays and it's still questionable. But whatever. The ACC refs are ACC refs. They are what they are. Florida State defense, as much maligned as this defense has been, you knew, or at least I knew, many Seminole fans probably knew, that this was a perfect matchup. UF's offense sucks. It has sucked. You've had Georgia slow them down. You've had South Carolina slow them down. Arkansas, who has one of the worst defenses the SEC has seen in a number of years, even they slowed them down. So you knew FSU's defense didn't have to, play out of their heads to slow this shitty offense down. Moreover, it's an offense that FSU's used to seeing. It's more the pro style. It's not like the spread option with the mobile QB that always rapes FSU's defenses. This is a pro style with a quarterback that's not that athletic. Appleby can run a little bit, but he's not exactly like Watson or Jackson back there. And so they did what a good defense should do to a shitty offense, and that is dominate them. They had 6 sacks. Appleby was just under duress all night. They held Jordan Scarlett to, I think, 50 something yards rushing, which isn't shit. Absolutely dominated. Do I think the FSU defense is back? No, because as I said, this was another bad offense the defense faced, and they faced a bunch of those the last month or so. Has the defense made an improvement? Sure. You're not seeing guys run just wide the hell open anymore and things like that, but you cannot discredit or discount the horrible offenses FSU's faced lately. Trying to think who else stood out in the game. I mean, obviously Walker, Burns did his thing. By the way, Brian Burns, I mean, coming to the season, I heard of how he could be a pass rushing specialist, but he needed to put on weight. Yeah, he still needs to put on weight, obviously, if you look at him. But the dude is even better than I thought. I remember I did like some recruiting video for a class, just some kind of article I wrote, and I remember watching Burns' high school videos. Like his first step is just unfair. It's ridiculous. And so he's almost at 10 sacks as a true freshman that needs to put on weight. So, yeah, him and Walker stood out. Obviously, I already mentioned Cook did his thing. And by the way, Cook, I'm going to bounce around here, by the way. If I get off topic, whatever. And I would like to keep this under 10 minutes, but I'm probably not going to be able to do so. Anyway, Cook, I saw someone tweet this yesterday. In his 6 combined games against Miami and Florida, he's rushed for over 900 yards and has nearly 200 yards receiving. And I can't remember how many touchdowns. It's it's a handful or more. So he's basically had a season's worth of stats in his 6 combined games against Florida and Miami. Speaking of Florida and Miami, as I'm sure you've already heard by now, this is the first FSU senior class to go 4-0 against each school. Now I get it. I'm sure there's some cynics out there, some critics that want to say, "Hey, Miami and Florida haven't exactly been Miami and Florida these past 4 years." I get that. Don't care. In these rivalries, you always take the W and enjoy it for what it is. Okay? At the same time, maybe you don't want to get up and scream from the mountaintops like, we beat a middling Florida team or a middling Miami team." That's fine, but you should still enjoy any victory over a bitter rival. Like, I'm sure when Urban was curb stomping Florida State during the lost decade, I'm sure there's not a bunch of Florida fans out there like, yeah, I don't really count those wins because Florida State wasn't any good. No, 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 no. You always take the W in these games. Um, what else? Injuries. Oh my God. You knew injuries were going to come up if Florida lost this game. You just knew it, And sure as shit, if you're on any kind of social media, I'm sure you've seen some Florida fans out there. Fortunately for me, most of my friends aren't totally moronic, but every fan base has idiots, and these people are, of course, throwing injuries as the reason they lost. The reason they got dominated, moreover, because again, I read to you or I said to you the yardage total and the yards per play. Florida's fortunate it wasn't worse than 31-13. I mean, if there's Florida fans out there that think this game was just a few plays away from being closer, you're not seeing or not reading the part where FSU pretty much doubled them up in yardage and yards per play. And if you want to play the if game, what if FSU didn't fumble that punt? What if Francois didn't fumble or throw an interception? What if Aguayo didn't miss two 40-something yard field goals? All right, if you want to play that what if game, it's a far more likely chance this victory could have been even more lopsided than it could have been closer. Like, give me a break. Florida got dominated. Look at the numbers. They're fortunate it wasn't fucking 41-6 or some shit. Like, quite honestly, let's get real here. Anyway, back to the injuries. You knew they were going to come out. I mean, last week versus LSU, it was, ooh, look, we overcame injuries to beat LSU to get a air quotes good win over LSU, who's a quote air quotes good team. And now, in a loss, you're hearing, oh, well, we have all these guys injured. Well, really? Okay, well, let's look at injuries for a second. All right, here's Florida State's injury report versus Florida. Not exactly the shortest list. And in case you don't know, among all these players, 5 of them are starters. Okay, so FSU was out 5 starters. Now I know that's less than Florida's missing starters because I think they had 7 or 8, whatever it was. Honestly, for me, whatever it was, subtract 1. Because if you count Del Rio, I mean, wow. How can you count him? He is pure trash. Either way, 5 starters to 7 or 5 to 6 or whatever it is, if you count Del Rio or not, it's hard for Knowles fans to feel any sympathy for you. You know, it's not like FSU came strolling into this game healthy. Now I get that at some point injuries become a factor, and if you're missing 7 or 8 dudes, obviously that's going to have an effect. But it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, that's the reason they lost. When, like I said, FSU's down 5 starters. That's nothing to sneeze at. I know it's less than 7 or 8 or whatever the UF starters missing, whatever that number was. But five is nothing to sneeze at. And you see the depth that's lost here too. Like, okay, get it. Florida's been a ridiculously injury-riddled team. Okay? But Florida State hasn't exactly been healthy. And if Florida would have had less injuries than Florida State and Florida State would have lost this game, you can believe I wouldn't be like, oh, well, we lost because we had more hurt players. No. I mean, this is what it is with some Florida fans. You hop on social media, and when I refer to Florida fans, I'm just referring to those that I've seen on, I'm only on Twitter. That's all I'm on. I'm on there for sports info and stuff. But I've seen shit come across, get retweeted, where a bunch of Florida fans are, pointing to the injuries, and it seems like it's been an excuse every year during this 4-game winning streak. In 2013, it was, man, Jameis shouldn't be playing. Jameis should be in jail. He should not be playing out. He raped that girl. He should not be playing. In 2014, it was the refs, man, ACC refs, man, they got us again. 2015, man, if we had Will Greer, that would have been a different game. As if Will Greer accounts for 25 fucking points in a fucking 27-2 game. If we would have had our quarterback that got caught using banned substances, we would have get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. And then of course this year, man, we had so many injuries. We had so many injuries. Anyway, you get the point. Like, fucking excuse factory every year from some of these Gators, man. Hell, there's one dude who's literally making a case for the refs in this game. He had like a GIF of a blatant holding call on FSU's left tackle that was missed, and it was a bad call. I'm like, are you really trying to point this to the fucking refs in this game? If I wanted to be petty, I'm sure I could go back and find bad or missed calls that went against the Knowles. I'm sure I could do that. Whether it's Tabor or Wilson being physical with the receivers, I'm sure I could find something in there. Or the fumble that may or may not have been. I think that was a lot closer than people want to say it was. Just because it wasn't overturned doesn't mean it was maybe a fumble. Like, I watched it again and I still cannot say for certain, oh, that's a fumble for sure. I get not being able to overturn it maybe, but if it had been called down by contact, it might not have been overturned as well. But anyway, playing that game is dumb. You think this game was on the refs? You're out of your fucking mind. 31-13, dominant in yards and no, just no. Just give that up. Good Lord, man. God, it never ceases to amaze me. It never does. You know? Golly. Anyways, what else I was going to move on to? Well, the SEC. 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 This was obviously ACC SEC rivalry weekend, and the ACC went 3-1 with the lone loss being Louisville. Louisville? How do you lose to Kentucky? How does that happen? Now, I don't root for the ACC. The only reason I even bring it up is because this is year after year. I'm tired of these SEC homers that still exist, that still have this entitlement, this SEC arrogance. Like, wake up. This isn't 2011 or 10 or some shit. The conference is not head and shoulders above the other conferences. It's pretty much like the other conferences at this point. It has one great team and then a bunch of mediocrity and then followed by a bunch of trash. Like, let's be real here. With that 3-1 mark this weekend, the ACC during rivalry weekend is now 10-2 against the SEC in the last 3 years. Oh, but that's the SEC East. as if they don't count, as if they're not a part of the conference. Secondly, and I was talking to this dude, commenting in a video where he would just wouldn't get what I was trying to say. He kept trying to insult me by saying your conference sucks. I was like, dude, I don't have a fucking conference. I don't root for them. Point I was trying to make to this guy is like, look, the ACC's the SEC, excuse me, is not what it was. It's not head and shoulders anymore. All right. I don't know what that's due to. Maybe it's the quality of coaching that's left that conference. I don't know because they still have the best players, at least if you look at the recruiting rankings and the drafting. But there's a disconnect there somewhere. I mean, if you look at Bama, they have the best players and they always win. If you look at Ohio State and some other schools, typically you look at the top 10 rankings at the end of the year, I'd say more than half of them are usually in the top 10 in recruiting rankings as well, like almost without fail. But anyways, why they're down, I don't know, but they are. You can't deny that they are. The SEC, and this guy asked me, name me a Power 5 conference that had a winning record against the SEC this year. So I said, all right, let me Google and take all of 2 seconds to look. Oh, huh. What do you know? The ACC has a winning record against the SEC this year. Moreover, the SEC had a losing record to out-of-conference Power 5 teams that they played. Furthermore, of those out-of-conference games, the strength of schedule for those games was one of the worst amongst the other Power 5. I think it might have been the worst among the Power 5 out-of-conference Power 5 schedule. I know it's a lot to digest there. I think the SEC's out of conference Power Five schedule was strength of schedule was like in the 50s. I think the other four Power Five divisions or conferences were ranked somewhere in the 40s. So it's like, hello, trying to explain to this guy like, get off your fucking pedestal, stop being a pompous fuck. Like the SEC is not what it used to be. If it's the best conference, it's not by much. It's not by much. So get over yourselves. Like, good God, I can't believe those people like still exist. Like just get on the internet and you're like, well, there's the internet, and here we go. Hello, internet. Fucking people coming out of the woodworks with that shit. Like, Jesus. Like, God damn. Just get over it. All right, what next? I guess briefly talk about FSU season now that it's over. Can't, God, it's already over, man. God, that's ridiculous. Oh, by the way, before I get into look back on the season, let's look forward. There's some bowl projections out there where the Noles could face Michigan in the Orange Bowl, which I would probably pick Michigan to win that game. But that would be cool because, God, I don't, maybe I was a kid, but I really can't recall any time that the Noles have ever played Michigan before. I'm sure they have in my, nearly, what, 24, 25 years as a fan. I mean, maybe there's some early 90s game I'm not thinking of or something, but that would be that'd be a cool matchup. Uh, If not, if it's not going to be the Knowles, it'll be Louisville. I think that's kind of the decision the Orange Bowl people are going to have to make. And obviously, if you look at the head-to-head, it, no brainer. It should be Louisville. But these people are human, and recency bias does exist, and they're going to see that Louisville lost their last two games. One, and they're both bad losses because one was a blowout against Houston, and the other one was to Kentucky. Meanwhile, FSU's played a lot better lately, granted, against less competition, but they've played better. And also, you can't ignore money. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Let's be real. If Florida State gets picked, if I was a Louisville fan, I'd be pissed because of the head-to-head thing. But if you actually look at the resumes, um, and look beyond the head-to-head, they actually measure up pretty closely. But I know you can't ignore the head-to-head, so we'll see. We'll see. If FSU goes to the Orange Bowl, God, that's pretty not bad in a year that's really fallen short of expectations. And I guess that's where I'll start with the year in review. I thought this team would go 11-1, which I know is like ooh, lofty expectations, but I thought the defense, you just saw the 4 and 5 stars on that side of the ball, and you expected the offensive line to improve from last year. And maybe it has. I mean, run blocking has been pretty much solid all year round. But the pass pro, as you know, has struggled. So you thought that would be an area of improvement. It hasn't been. You knew Francois was a first year starter, but you knew he was also more talented than McGuire. And I think we can all agree, and now that the season's concluded, that Francois was the correct choice. Okay, he didn't light the world on fire or anything, but considering he's a first year starter, considering the inconsistent pass protection, and that's putting it nicely, putting it in the context of all that, he's had a solid first year. 3,000 yards. What does he have? 18 or 19 TDs, and I think just maybe 6 interceptions. Could have had more. There people have dropped some of his picks throughout this season. They started running him more the second half of the year, finally. So he added some ground yardage at the end there. All in all, a solid first year. Um, but obviously they didn't meet expectations. They weren't 11-1. They're not fighting to get into the college football playoff. They're 9-3. And the Clemson loss, okay, that's fine. I could have accepted that. I actually thought they'd beat Clemson this year, and hey, they almost did. But the North Carolina loss at home, like you should not lose to North Carolina at home. I don't care that they have a good offense. Like, they just had guys running free that whole game, and it was just pathetic. And 23 seconds to go, you can't keep them out of field goal range. Guy makes a miracle 54-yarder. Like, that was just awful. And then, of course, there's no excuse to losing to Louisville by 43. Florida State, and I said this at the time of the Louisville loss, Florida State shouldn't lose to anybody by 43 points. That's not cockiness. That's not arrogance. That's just being real. When you have top five classes nearly every year, you shouldn't lose to anybody by 43. Not even Bama, okay? Maybe you lose by 23 to Bama. That's fine. You shouldn't lose to anybody by 43 with the amount of talent they have. So, very disappointing. On one end, you want to be positive. Like, look, they were a final drive against Clemson and a 54-yard field goal away from being 11-1. But on the flip side, it's like this season also at one point maybe could have gone the other way and really derailed and possibly went towards a 7-5 season, you know, if they don't come back against NC State, you know, if, you knew what Florida was, but by the end of the year, you didn't know how injury riddled they're going to be, but some things could have happened a little differently where it actually could have been worse. So I hope, and this is part of the looking forward now, I hope Jimbo doesn't look back on this season and think the former of what I just talked about, and that, hey, we were just this close away from being 11-1. Maybe we're right, and that I don't want that line of thinking to cause him to not make any changes, because that would just be a huge mistake. Please don't do that, Jimbo. Don't think because you wrapped up the year with what, 4 wins in a row, whatever it was, against a bunch of bad offenses that suddenly your defense is fixed and you finished 9-3 and but it could have been 11-1. No, 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 no. I think perhaps it was fortunate to be 9-3 because shit really could have went off the rails, and you still need to make changes. Now, after the Florida game, I heard he gave Charles Kelly a ringing endorsement, which is like, fuck me. I don't think Kelly's going anywhere, guys. I've said it before, and I listen to Seminole Headlines podcast and some other people, and they just keep pointing out, hey, Jimbo went to the administration and got Kelly a raise before the season started. Is he really going to go back to them and be like, look, I need more money because I'm going to fire him and hire another guy that's more expensive? That doesn't sound like it's going to happen. But good Lord, Jimbo needs to realize, like, look, this team was too talented to go 9-3. This team was too talented to have the defense looking like ass the first half of the year, even if it was against good offenses, like just looking lost against Louisville, looking lost against North Carolina. Hell, even South Florida for a time. I mean, just there's you can't ignore the first half where the defense was just absolutely pathetic, absolutely looking ill prepared time and time again. So I wish he could just get rid of Kelly. I've already talked about like get rid of everyone on the defensive side of the ball except I'll keep Odell and I'll keep Brad Lawing. That's it. For me, everybody else can go on the defensive side of the ball. And Jay Graham, you can go the hell on because if you're the special teams coordinator as well as the running backs coach, I don't know what you're coordinating on special teams because special teams, especially punt coverage, is one of the worst in the country. You need to get the fuck on. And punt returns. I can't remember one time we had like good punt returns. Like year in and year out, our average punt return is just garbage. Like our guys have to do everything just to catch the fucking ball. So you can go the hell on. If Trickett wants to retire, air quotes, he can do that. I wouldn't be pissed if he stayed. I still think he's a solid coach, but you know, the staff needs some kind of overhaul, definitely on the defensive side. They also need to get younger and get better recruiters. I know that sounds ridiculous considering Florida State had like the first or second class last year, but they have too many old white guys. Just point blank, period. Too many old white guys. Need some younger dudes. Need another African American or two. And speaking of African American coaches, Dossie, obviously, please get the hell out of Dodge. You can't recruit that great, and it takes more than half a season to get guys like Tate and Murray on the field. Like, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. Anyway, all we got is the bowl game. I'm not sure when the bowl. I'm assuming it's probably very soon, the bowl selection. Anyways, we'll see where it is. It could either be the Orange Bowl, as I said, or maybe Orlando. Probably one of those two, from what I gather. Either way, wrap things up. I kind of bounced all over on this podcast and made it long, but yeah, take the win, the dominating win over Florida. Any year, I'll take that. Florida fans, you can stuff your excuses in a sack. Over hearing that. SEC fans, wake up. Your conference isn't dominating anybody anymore. Hell, there's no conference that does that right now. I think I read that this year there's only 17 9-win Power 5 teams. 17. That's not much. It's basically like Bama. The SEC basically represents the entire Power 5. Like it mirrors the Power 5 in that it's Bama and then everybody else. Maybe you want to throw Ohio State in there because obviously they're ridiculously loaded and Urban Meyer's a great coach. But for the most part, it's Bama and a bunch of meh. Either way, look forward to this weekend's conference championship games. Probably watch them anyway, just because it's another weekend of college football. I mean, I'm gonna miss it when it's gone, so I'll probably tune into some of those at least. Oh, and I know FSU's not playing in a conference championship game. I hope that makes whatever Florida fans are saying that feel better. They said it last year. It's like you just lost. No Florida State fan cares. You lost to us. Cool. Have fun getting your head beat in by Bama. Anyways, that's it. That's all. I'm rambling now. First time visitor, please feel free to subscribe. And this has been another Florida State Semi-cast. I'm out.